I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Robert Bishop. Here. Dan Aston.
Here.
John Boyle.
Yes.
Town Manager Thomas Hutchison.
Here.
Chair Joseph Dibber.
Here.
And excused is Mark Stroud.
Thank you. Minutes of November 13, 2023. If I can have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes from our Monday, November 13th meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Public address to the board. This is the time when the public may address the board on any item listed on the agenda or on any issue or matter of the town. If you intend on addressing the board at this time, we ask that you do the following. Please identify yourself by name, address, or company institution you represent. Public address to the board segment will last no longer than 30 minutes. Please make your comments concise and try not to repeat statements made by others. Please address your comments to the board chair. Discussion or debate on any issue may not take place at this time. The chair of the designee may answer questions on procedural matters. Please be cordial and respectful of others. If anyone wishes to be recognized when the board discusses an agenda, then please make that request at this time. The board chair may grant this request. Address comments to the board chair and please be concise. We are meeting in person and making this meeting available via Zoom for the convenience of the public. Since we are meeting in person, we will not be responsible for any technical difficulties. So if you would like to be sure to participate, then please attend in person. Anybody to address the board this evening?
Henry Rhodes, North Mountain Road. When you discuss hazard mitigation, I'd like to ask some questions.
Sure.
Hi, Cheryl Rose, North Mountain Road, hazard mitigation.
See none? Thank you. Okay, we're going to quickly go through the appointment ratifications, a couple of things on licensing board, and then we're going to, I think, if there's no objection, move number 9 up before 8. It's just administrative thing tonight. All right, Mr. Hutchinson, appointment ratifications.
Yes, Scott Bolak is with us now, and he came to the last Finance Committee meeting. I've had email communications with him. He talked with the members, and if you could give him a little, if you could come forward to give the select board a little bit of your background, I think they'll see why you're a great fit for the Finance Committee.
Where do I talk?
Yeah.
Hi, yeah, I moved out to Dalton 3 years ago. Love Dalton. I kind of work in rules, regulations, compliance. I deal with big numbers and life insurance. Just want to help the town as much as I can, and this seemed like an interesting fit.
Awesome, Scott.
Yeah.
Thanks. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Is there a motion?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the appointment of Scott Golak to the Finance Committee effective November 28th, 2023 through the next town election, May 13th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations, Scott, and thank you for volunteering for that role.
Yeah, very excited. Thank you.
Next one, sir.
And we have Lisa Stankiewicz to be appointed to the Council on Aging. This comes straight as a recommendation from them.
Sure. Okay. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the appointment of Lisa Stankiewicz to the Council on Aging effective November 28th, 2023 through June 30th, 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Lisa. We have a motion to open as a licensing board.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We now open as a licensing board. And change of manager application for Shire Brew House. Hello, gentlemen.
How you doing?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jesse Cook-Dubin. I'm counsel to Shire Brew House, and with me tonight is Mike Lazzari, who's the proposed manager, on the pouring license for the restaurant there. You should know that at the same time, we've filed an application to name him as the manager on the brew pub license. As you're probably aware, that goes directly to the state, so there's only one before you today. Mike is the business manager and assistant brewer at the brewery. He's been there for over 2 years. He is tip certified. This is his full-time job, and he is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board?
No.
Yeah,
Thank you.
congratulations. So a motion to accept change of manager application as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. You continue the great work over there.
Thank you.
It's a great spot.
Thanks.
So, yeah.
We're getting better. We're pushing it forward, so.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
You too. Thank you.
And we'll come to Country Club. Mr. Boyle, you say?
Yeah, the part B, or the second part of this item is been withdrawn, and we should simply go to change of manager application, and a member of the board of directors, Sue Lejean, is here to handle this matter.
Okay, so, close.
The change of manager, last year, we were not able to, or we did not hire our manager until after the season had started, so Jim Scalise became the manager for the country club for our house operation, which includes our bar, etc. Now we're asking that we can appoint Eric as the change of manager. He's been working for us for over a year, has done a good job.
Is there a motion?
I'm just looking at the application here. Where's Eric on this?
You may have, do you have that may be the change of directors that you have? I can't see it.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Eric just lives right around the corner.
So this application is being withdrawn?
The board of directors.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the change of manager application for Wacona Country Club. The manager listed as Eric Joseph.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if I can, there's no objection, move number 9 up. And we can start with the hazard mitigation plan. Update the public meeting. And Glenn.
Thank you. As the board knows, our hazard mitigation plan is up in June. We applied for and received a grant through MEMA to update our plan. Part of that was that MEMA came forward with a consulting company who we've been working with for the past couple months to put the new plan together. So what I'd like to do is turn to the screen and introduce Jamie Kaplan. Jamie is the head of the consulting firm that we're working with, and she's put together a presentation. Part of what we have to do to satisfy the needs is to have we've been meeting as a committee, we have been meeting and putting information together for her. And one of the requirements is that we have a public forum meeting. So that's why we asked that we not only be able to brief you tonight as a select board, but also open it to the town. So I will turn it over to Jamie Kaplan.
Great. Hi, Jamie.
Hi there, thank you so much for having me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. You're a little bit hard to hear on my end, just so you know. Can you give me a sense of how many people are in the room other than all of you sitting at the tables?
Yep, we have in the public audience, we have 3, 5, we have a reporter from iBerkshires, and then a couple of members of our team. So,
Great,
Yep.
great. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is give you a sense of what in the world the hazard mitigation plan is, and help you kind of understand our process for putting the hazard mitigation plan together. And I'd like to run the slides through this program called Mentimeter. So for those of you who have cell phones that can go online, or you're on a computer or something, if you can, go to the website menti.com. That's MENTI.com. And when you get there, you don't need to download anything. You just put this code in, 54530978, and the code will show up on all the slides, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you can do that, it'll give you a chance to easily participate in the presentation. And we're a small enough group so that if you can't do it, don't worry about it. You can just, raise your hand, and, we can have some conversation that way, or you could enter things in the chat. Whatever works best for all of you is fine with me. All right. Great, so we've got at least one person, which I'm assuming is Morgan, made it into this website. All right. So just to kind of kick us off, this is a very general question, but what are the characteristics of Dalton that you like the best? Like, what's something about your town that you really like and value? And I put this up there, one, because it's interesting for me to know, and also because it gives you a sense of how the Menti works. So if you type in a response, we'd see the response come right up on the screen. And for folks in the room, I know you're on the mic. Do you want to add anything? I mean, you live there, most of you, I would assume, right? You're participating in the select board. What makes your town special? What's something you like about it?
I think most people are going to say, like, the sense of community.
Yeah.
The Appalachian Trail goes through the middle of it.
Right. Good. All right. So this gives you a sense of how the Mentimeter works a little bit too. Plus, I think it's kind of interesting to see, what you value about your community, because we certainly want your hazard mitigation plan to reflect that. All right. So moving forward, just so you know, I'll give you a little more information about who I am and how this came to be. We'll talk a bit about what in the world is hazard mitigation and what is in a hazard mitigation plan. We'll go over identifying your natural hazards and your critical facilities, and then we'll brainstorm a little bit some possible mitigation actions and some next steps for all of you. So just so you know, I think it was Glenn who mentioned that MEMA, Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, hired my firm, Jamie Kaplan Consulting, to update hazard mitigation plans throughout the state. And our original contract was for 2 years, and we've worked on 14 plans. They've extended that contract with 6 additional communities, yours being one of them. But the intent is for them to give us a total of 17 more. So we've been pretty busy over the last couple of years with updating these plans. We are a group of independent consultants and have all been working in emergency management and specifically in hazard mitigation for well over 20 years. And just as an FYI, I'm in Northampton. So not too far from all of you, and certainly familiar with where you are. All right. So in terms of what hazard mitigation is, FEMA would define it as any sustained action taken to reduce or eliminate the long-term risk to life and property from hazard events. So we're really talking about what you could do to minimize your risks. And we're focused on natural hazards. So we're thinking about things like extreme temperatures, right? It's beginning to get cold. I'm sure you had frost and a little snow, or maybe a little bit more than a little snow recently, right? About probably 3 or 4 inches not too long ago. We can't stop that from happening, but we don't have to have it become a disaster. And so the hazard mitigation plan is going to look at what you can do to minimize the risks posed by these natural hazards. And it's been proven that for every dollar you spend what we would call mitigating risk, you're saving approximately $6 on future disaster losses, right? So if you, for instance, the electric company comes by and takes down a tree that is going to possibly impact your power lines, the cost of doing that is exponentially less than if the power line gets taken out by a tree, which also goes across the road. Now no one's going to work, possibly somebody was in danger from it, etc. So we want to minimize those risks, and that's what hazard mitigation is. So your hazard mitigation plan will include these components. The community profile really sets the stage for what is there, who lives there, what's the community like, what's your built environment like. It goes back to include some of those things that you mentioned from my very first question of what you like about the community. It can mention things like the Appalachian Trail. Then we talk about hazard information and your risk. So that's where we'll list all of the possible natural hazards and their potential impact. Excuse me, the plan will also include community capabilities. This is your capacity to mitigate risk. So that would include things like, do you have geographic information systems or GIS? Do you have enough staff? Do you have a town planner? Do you have a shelter? Does that shelter have backup power, etc.? And then the mitigation strategy, which is the most important part of your hazard mitigation plan. This plan turns into several hundred pages. Will list the projects or activities that we think that you can do. We'll come up with you to mitigate risk. So once we've identified those hazards, we've identified some challenges in terms of your capabilities, then we have a list of projects that we think will mitigate those challenges. And finally, how you'll implement and maintain the plan. It's not designed to sit on a shelf, it's a living document, and so we want you to use it. So that's what's in the plan, just to give you a sense of it. And the benefit of having a hazard mitigation plan, one of the first benefits is that you're going to hopefully save lives and money. And the plan will enable you to receive or be eligible to receive pre-disaster mitigation funding from FEMA through the state. You are not eligible to receive those funds without a FEMA-approved hazard mitigation plan. So that's certainly the biggest incentive most communities have. Your plan will identify cost-effective actions for you to reduce risk. We're going to focus on your greatest vulnerabilities and really weigh the benefits versus the costs for all of the different projects that we come up with together. We're not looking for harebrained ideas, if you will. We're really looking for some realistic projects that you could get some grant funding for and implement and have them make a real difference. We're going to encourage you to build partnerships in terms of how you mitigate risk, right? You want to work with your neighbors. You've got Pittsfield on one side, Hinsdale, I believe, is on the other side of you, right? So your natural hazards that we look at, they're going to cross those borders. And so when you consider mitigating risk, you want to cross those borders as well. Plus, something to keep in mind is typically FEMA and some other agencies are more likely to fund projects that have that joint effort, right? So if you work with another community, you're more likely to get the funding. The plan itself will increase awareness of hazards and risk. I think you'll learn something just by participating in the meeting today, and certainly by reviewing the plan itself. The plan will communicate, your priorities. So we've made a big effort and will continue to review all of the plans that you have in place, other documents that you have on your website, and that your committee has provided us with, so that we get a really good sense of what your community is all about and what you want to do. And we want to make sure that the plan we write aligns with your objectives and your goals. So it's not a cookie cutter kind of thing, it's unique to you. So our timeline for putting this together, we started back in September. We plan to finish the plan and get it to the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency for their review in April. Once MEMA is comfortable with the plan, they send it on to FEMA for their review. After FEMA reviews the plan, it comes back to the town for the select board to formally adopt the plan. It's at that time when you adopt the plan that it's then good for 5 years and you're eligible for that pre-disaster funding. Pardon me. What's important for you to know, looking at this kind of aerial view of our process of getting from September to April, is that top line of convening the Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee. That's really just public engagement, town involvement, if you will, and we do have meetings and we are scheduled to have you involved in the process every single step of the way. As I mentioned to you before, it's very important that this plan represent you well, and the only way that that can happen is if we have a good dialogue and participate with each other. So we're right on schedule now with having the public meeting. We're just a little bit ahead, I suppose, because we're meeting just at the end of November. So one of the first things we did with putting the hazard mitigation plan together is review your previous plan, which is from 2018. We also look at the state hazard mitigation and climate adaptation plan, and then you have what's called a municipal vulnerability preparedness plan, or MVP plan, from 2019. We've taken a look at that as well. So the MVP plan, as well as your previous mitigation plan, list mitigation actions, or these projects that you may want to implement. So we want to get a sense right away of which projects you have implemented, which you haven't, and which you may want to still implement. And that's where we start, by developing your new list. We also want to make sure that your plan is consistent with the state's plan. They've recently released an updated version of their plan, so we've carefully gone through that to make sure it's consistent. And then we look for these other types of plans to see what you have, so we can make sure, again, that we're consistent with that and representing your priorities well. All right, so the other first thing that we do is put together what we call a hazard mitigation planning committee. And it's the job of this committee to provide us with supporting data and information. I live close to you, but not there. So don't know all that much about your community, and the best way for us to learn about it is to work with people there. So the committee is responsible for providing us with some information and data. They're also responsible for assisting with the outreach and stakeholder engagement. That's how we got here today. And just as an FYI, we'll have an additional public meeting towards the end of our process, and then you'll have the chance to review the draft plan as well. And the committee also assists with identifying and prioritizing the mitigation actions, and finally reviewing and commenting on the draft plan. And this is just a list. It's not 100%, but as of right now, this is the list of people that we're working with on your committee, just to give you a sense of who's involved. And I think you can see here we've really tried to represent all aspects of the community. So as we get going, one of the first things we do is figure out what natural hazards should we be concerned with? What natural hazards may impact Dalton? So if you are on Mentimeter and can put in some responses, that would be great. And if you're not and you want to add them either to the chat or just call them out, that's okay too. But I'd love for us to make a bit of a list to make sure your concerns are represented. All right. Flooding.
Fires? I got it in the fires.
You can add things in even if you see them there because it'll just make them bigger and a bigger priority. All right, so we've got winter storms, extreme cold, snow, heat, wildfires, flooding, drought. What else? Are we missing anything?
Trains carrying toxic chemicals.
Did you say toxic chemicals?
Yes? Oh, natural hazards.
Okay.
You're only looking for natural hazards. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
Jamie, her initial comment was related to that our trains coming through town, but then recall that they're looking for natural hazards first, so.
Yes, but I think having the trains coming through town is something that we definitely need to consider. You can go ahead and add it to that list. It's definitely something that will be represented in your plan.
Tornadoes?
Similarly for trucks.
We had a tornado here once.
Tornadoes is a good one to add. What else you got?
Well, are we sticking with natural only?
We're going to try and stick with natural. Did you have something else in mind?
I would just say in addition to trains, the trucks, which, are going near the stream. So as truck spill, an oil spill on the road can obviously impact the stream. I don't know if something like that's, appropriate for this list.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment. That's a good comment. All right, let me show you some of what we're thinking about. So this is you've got most of these things. This is what we're working with in terms of your natural hazards. We do have extreme temperatures, drought, earthquake. I don't believe you mentioned earthquake, but that will be included. Flooding, hurricanes and tropical storms. Invasive species was not something you mentioned, but I think it's something we should consider. Landslides, what's your thought on that?
No. What, from where? From where?
I think the only thing we would consider when it's landslides is some of the natural erosion around the river. But I don't think it's anything, we don't have anything that would be like a population affected type of thing.
Right, I think you're probably right about that. When we list severe weather, we're thinking about some of those like heavy rainstorms and thunderstorms and stuff. Severe winter storms, tornadoes, and wildfires and brush fires. So I think we're on the same page with the list. It's a priority of ours and a FEMA requirement that we consider all hazards that are possible and all that are listed in the state plan. We don't have to include them, but we have to consider if it's relevant.
What about tropical disease vectors?
I didn't hear you.
Tropical disease vectors.
Tropical disease vectors, we can add that.
You're talking about mosquito or bird transmitted? Ticks, bird, West Nile.
Okay. Yeah, that's something we can talk about. All right. So one of the next things we do is we profile these hazards. So every single hazard, we describe it, and we start with a really basic, what is an earthquake kind of description. Like really start at the beginning. We talk about where the hazard will occur in town. So some of these hazards are going to be what we would consider atmospheric, right? They're going to happen everywhere. If you have extreme heat or extreme cold, it probably doesn't matter a lot which area of town you're in, compared to your flooding is going to be more focused near your streams and rivers. We're going to look to your previous occurrences, what has occurred in the past, and the extent of what is possible. So we talked about earthquakes, you know, are you going to have an 8.0 earthquake? Not likely, right? It's much more likely that you're going to have smaller earthquakes with the highest would probably be around a 3. And then the probability of future events. How likely is it that these things will occur? And then what's vulnerable? And when we look at what's vulnerable and the impact of that, we're thinking about your structures and systems, your population, and how these hazards may be impacted. All right. We're also going to look to climate change. The state does fairly recently, just last December, I guess, put out a new climate change assessment. It's very detailed, and one of the things that it talks about is what the impacts of climate change are in different areas of the state, so we're paying attention to that. And we, in general, think about climate change in terms of its impact to your natural hazards, right? We're seeing more frequent rain, we're seeing changes in temperatures, like the temperature fluctuations are happening faster. That's part of why our roads are falling apart. So we don't consider climate change a hazard in and of itself, but we look at how it's impacting other hazards in the region. And these are all things we want to then mitigate. And then we consider your critical facilities. And when we think about critical facilities, we usually consider structures necessary for you to respond and recover in emergency situations, but it doesn't have to be only that. So this gives us a sense of, can be your fire stations, police stations, but you may also want to include your library. You want to include some other healthcare facilities if you have anything like that, communications that your first responders rely upon. If they've got a tower or a repeater someplace, you want to include that. That's worthwhile. And we also want to think about your utilities, right? Where are you getting power and water? So those are all things that we consider. So with that in mind, help me with a list of what your critical facilities are. What do you think we should consider? Where are you sitting right now? Let's start with that. Most of you, are you in town hall for your select board meeting?
No, this is the senior center, which is now our primary emergency operations center.
Okay. And is there backup power there?
There will be.
Okay.
We need to do some electrical work here in order to have proper backup.
Okay. Great, so senior center, fire station, town hall, schools, library. What else you got? VFW, American Legion, good. Code Red Communications is important. Wastewater treatment, I'm glad you added that. And the schools. What's CRA?
Community Recreation Association. It's one of our recreational buildings.
Okay. Access to hospital, fire department, police department, warming facilities, medical, transfer station, police station. Good. DPW, good one. Great. All right, let me show you the list that we're working with at the moment. It's not set in stone. But this is some of what we have listed already for you in terms of critical facilities? I'll just give you a second to take a look at it, but I think you mentioned many of these things. The reservoirs you didn't mention, but most of the rest of it I think we covered. Any thoughts on this list?
How does it figure in when our drinking water's not in our town? You know, the reservoir.
That the drinking water doesn't come from your town, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the reservoir is not in our town.
Right. But it's certainly critical to you, so well, that's why we'll consider it. Oh, and Yanko just mentioned doctor's offices or a triage center. Something to consider adding. All right. Great. So some of what we do with that is we're going to combine this list of critical facilities or community assets and hazards to come up with risk, right? We're looking at where is the damage, loss, or other impacts going to occur between this interaction. And with community assets, we're going to think about not just these critical facilities, but where's your population, where do people live, your whole built environment, bridges, culverts, etc. We'll think about your natural environment as well as your economy. And one thing to think about with economy are your roads, right? It's very key that people can get through town to Pittsfield to work, for instance, or other areas for work or entertainment or recreation or whatever. So that's something we want to consider is how are these, all of these assets impacted by that full list of hazards. And when we look at that impact, this is just an example of some of what we'll do. And this is not finished by any stretch, but just as an example is we will map where all of these facilities are. So we can look at your entire built environment and then overlay things like flood risk to that. And based on that, we can get a sense of what would possibly be your loss and even just on a visual level, where are your high hazard areas? Where are the areas where there could be a significant amount of flooding and you'd also have an interaction with some critical facilities or your built environment. So this is just an example of what's going to happen with some of this information. All right. And then we want to consider problems, right? We look at this interaction and we want to identify where are the problems. Where are perhaps underserved or socially vulnerable people? For instance, you're in the senior center, right? So are there areas of the community where more seniors are living? And are those areas at risk? And certainly, we want to make sure that, for instance, if there is going to be some kind of natural disaster, that you're planning for your most vulnerable citizens. We look to your structures. We want to look at your systems and your capabilities, and then other resources like your natural or cultural resources, and even events, like if you had some sort of like town fair in the summer or something like that, that adds to the value of what it is to live there, right? That has to do with your sense of community, and it can be impacted by natural hazards. And so we want to understand that and then hopefully identify ways to mitigate those risks. So when we think about mitigation actions, and again, these are those projects or activities that you can do to lessen the impact of this interaction of these natural hazards with your built environment and your people. We are looking to all of you for ideas, right? We're looking to your hazard mitigation planning committee, as well as meetings like this one. We're looking to your previous mitigation plan and MVP plan for suggested actions. And then we're looking to the risk and capability assessments that we do as part of our planning process. So that's how we develop our mitigation actions. And when we look to develop a mitigation action, we consider problems. So for instance, just as an example, suppose your senior center is in the floodplain, just as an example. If that's the case, we want to look for solutions in these 4 categories. Local plans and regulations, that would be policies or codes that talk about how you're going to use land and develop. Structure and infrastructure projects, that could be things like replacing a culvert or moving the building to a different location. Natural systems protection, this could be things like preventing erosion on your streams and rivers so that you don't have flooding. And then education and awareness programs, which are fairly self-explanatory. So for all of those problems that we identify, we're looking to these 4 areas as possible areas of solution. So now I ask you, how do you think the town can mitigate risk? You're aware, you live there, most of you, you're aware of some problems in the area. What would you like to see the town do to mitigate risk? And there's no like not good ideas or stupid ideas or whatever. Anything is fine to share.
Community education?
I didn't hear what somebody said.
Community education?
Education is a great one.
I'm stuck on a previous slide, so I can't, should I just yell out what I want? It won't let me advance to the next question. We need better communication.
All right, and what are you thinking about in terms of better communication? Can you expand on that?
Sure. Communication, that a phone call is not sufficient or a text message, but I mean, you know, a lot of people really don't do some of the basic planning for themselves in terms of what a home needs to have even to be more resilient to a power outage, etc. Like things that you can remind people or give a list. Also, there are people living in the flood zone. I don't know if they know they live in a flood zone, and our flood maps, I think, are from 1982 or something, so, you know, even our flood zones might be larger, and I don't know if that we have a plan for where people are supposed to go if there was flooding, how we, you know, do we have a plan for evacuating if you had to evacuate, what's the plan? We only have one main road to the hospital. That seems to be an issue for me, so that's something. But the communication thing, I think, just in terms of education, dovetailing with education, ways to educate people, communication to educate people. What communications are other towns using?
Yeah, those are great ideas. And I think it's so important that people know, people probably don't even know that you would use the senior center, for instance, as a warming or cooling center if need be, or that it is your emergency operations center. And I'm sure they don't know where to evacuate to.
Right.
Those are good ideas. Other thoughts on mitigation? All right. Well, that's the big crux of our planning process, is to come up with these projects and these ideas. And as I mentioned to you before, we will have another public meeting that will focus a lot more on what the mitigation actions are that will go into your plan. And then, you know, if you want to add any to that list, that when I show you that, that will be possible. But I think a lot of what you're mentioning now, you'll see in the plan when we have the draft plan.
Great. Jamie, we have one more comment from the audience. Mr. Willis?
Oh, go for it.
Just knowing your neighbors and knowing their phone numbers can be helpful, because in a situation where EMS personnel are overwhelmed, just knowing your neighbors, you can help them and they can help you. And we could talk this up at Dalton Day or at a town meeting. Communicate.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, as people who are, I am not a first responder, right? So we are typically the first responders, right? We're the people who then, we call other people, you know, we call in the fire department, we call the police, but you're most likely to be your neighbor's first responder. So I agree, that's a good idea. Drainage in vulnerable areas is a great comment. So we have it. How many times are we going to have it? All right. So just so you know, we will have another public meeting in March. Then you will have the opportunity to review the draft plan in April. In the meantime, we are going to continue to have these hazard mitigation planning committee meetings. So anytime you want to give some feedback or have some concerns or want to contribute, you're, in my mind, welcome to attend those meetings. I wanted to show you this. It's not part of what will be in your hazard mitigation plan, but it's something that just as citizens you may want to be aware of. And certainly this is the kind of thing that you can do some education and outreach for. So I pulled this graphic off of the ready.gov website. It's a good website, it has a lot of good information, and I think there are things that we could all do, including myself, better in our own homes or businesses to be prepared, and as prepared as we are, that really reduces the amount that our first responders have to do, which is better, because then they can prioritize their efforts where they're needed the most. So, for instance, planning with neighbors, you already mentioned that. That's key. All right. And then I just wanted to open it up if you had any questions for me or questions about the plan and the process of putting this plan together. I'm happy to answer those.
Jamie, one question I have, and this was, the presentation was very well done, so thank you to Glenn, yourself, the team, the committee. Everyone has had a hand in putting this material together. As we go forward, is there a section in which you look at our risk mitigation strategy or recommendations and the staffing model in order to execute that in a timely manner? We have a wonderful emergency management director. He's pulling everything together. I don't know how he does it, but just thinking about the staffing model or how to manage the operation of getting us to a new foundation and then also maintain that new foundation of programs moving forward.
So the hazard mitigation plan, the capability assessment part of the plan will look at if you need more staff, but we don't say whether you need more staff or not. We're just looking for if you have key roles there, or if, for instance, the emergency management director says we do need something, then that would be included. We're not going to tell you you do or don't need more or less people. And I think a lot of what you're asking in terms of like a staffing model is more focused on preparing or responding to disasters. And this plan will really focus on what you can do on kind of a nice sunny day when nothing's happening so you don't have a disaster. But it's not going to help you respond to the disaster or make sure you have the people in place to do that necessarily.
Okay.
I think
If I'm getting you correctly.
So, one of the things we've discussed, and it's all part of the pieces of the puzzle. So, putting together a hazard mitigation plan and then the municipal vulnerability plan, once we get those in place, then that allows us to address the problems. And one of the things, we can talk about, say, the generator here, or, putting the generator here so we can have backup. And then we can put in for the funding, or we can apply for grants and then we can address those problems moving forward. So this is kind of one piece of the puzzle, kind of the
Yes.
bottom footing layer of the foundation to get the plans in place, so then we can start to build off of that using the funding that's available. But we can't get the funding that's
Right.
available unless we have these plans in place.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. And like I mentioned in the beginning, this plan doesn't guarantee funding, but it guarantees that the door is open to funding. Without it, you are not eligible for pre-disaster funding. And that's what you want to do pre-disaster is spend the money to mitigate risk.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan.
That's a good question. Other questions, comments?
Do we have a question from the audience? Ms. Burrows?
Hi. Oh,
That's okay.
okay.
Sure.
So my understanding is that tonight's forum is a quote-unquote public forum to get stakeholder, as in the public's input. So I'm just curious to understand how tonight's forum was advertised to the public, from anybody.
We'll take them one time.
The way we have to advertise now is through our website, which we hope everybody goes to, and of course, as part of the select board meeting.
We posted up, we put some flyers up, and like I said, we had it on the town website. Don't think we
There's
hit
a
Dalton
press
for
release
television.
here.
What's that?
There's a press release copy.
Yep, the press release, yep.
The Berkshire Eagle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did do a press release, and I know that was,
So maybe for the
the
next
press
one?
release was sent out to, I think, what, iBerkshires and the Berkshire Eagle and Berkshire.
So do you think for the next one, you could use the way we have for elections to notify people just driving through town that we're gonna have this forum, so that more people could know?
Like a signboard, you mean?
Yeah,
that-
you know,
No,
there's like
I'm-
the little A-frame that the
Yeah,
clerk
we could do something
puts
like that,
out
sure.
to let people know, because I don't usually go looking in the classic, whatever announcements in the Berkshire Eagle for things, so, I wouldn't have known when to look, if it was on one day or something, it's just not, I'm just thinking somewhere where I might see it, because I knew about it because Joe told me,
Right.
which, thank you, Joe. But I mean, I'm just saying, there are all of, 4 of us here from the public really, who,
Right.
other than the inside group, came,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them came because of getting appointed tonight, so 3 of us maybe came, I don't know, but I mean, there's a whole town of people that could have had something to say. And so if there's going to be another opportunity, I think that'd be good if it was better advertised.
Those are great comments, and certainly we make a big effort to engage with as many people as we can, sort of in the beginning of our process, which is where we are now, as well as towards the end, and then with giving you a chance to review the draft plan. The other thing to know is that hazard mitigation plans, once they're approved by FEMA and adopted by the select board, they stay as living documents. So it's something that you can continue to update and change. You don't have to make any changes for 5 years. FEMA will give you approval for 5 years, but they are living documents. The other thing I would say is by having this meeting as a select board meeting and having, I understand there's 3 or 4 people in the room, and then we've got another 4 or 5 on Zoom. That's about as good as it gets for a town your size. It's pretty good. Like that's a lot of public participation, even though it seems like, there's over 1,000 people obviously who live there.
6,000.
It is, it's not, it's not everybody's top thing, I guess, to come to a meeting like this. But I've taken notes and obviously we've recorded the meeting, so it will be shared on the website, and your comments and some of the slides that we've created will show up in your plan. But I don't want you to ever feel like you've missed an opportunity to participate, because there will always be the next one.
No, I'm really speaking to the communication issue. Maybe a listserv is really what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I have a quick top-level question. These are 5-year intervals for these plans, correct?
Yes, every 5 years, it's a requirement, a FEMA requirement that you update your plan every 5 years.
What is the time horizon of the plan? Is it for 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 5 years, 10?
You mean, how far out are we looking
Yeah,
when we're looking at risk?
yes.
Yeah, we try not to look too far ahead. We really kind of balance that because the plans are only good for 5 years, so we're trying to come up with projects that you're gonna do in the next 5 to maybe 8 to 10 years. But we are looking enough ahead to understand that, for instance, climate change is making a significant difference in terms of, we're seeing temperature changes over, a longer period of time, and so we're considering that as we develop our actions.
So 8 to 10 max?
Yeah, usually. We can put in longer things, but I try and, I try to give the town a digestible list, if you will, right? You don't have unlimited numbers of staff who can write grants to get funding to do projects. You want to have, a handful of things that really make sense to work on right away over the next 5+ years.
Thank you.
If you haven't looked at the previous plan, I believe it's on your website, and if it's not, and you don't have a handy copy of it, that's something I could share back with you,
Mr. Rose?
I'd like to
just to get a
highlight
sense of what's in them.
I'd like to highlight Cheryl's request that maybe a listserv would be a much better way to communicate such meetings.
Did somebody have another question?
Yeah, it's back to the communication. That listserv idea is actually going to be incorporated into the new website design.
Sure, because I don't take it upon myself to go to the town website very often, and again, I heard about this meeting because you, Joe, texted me.
Yeah.
But there could be a lot more people here, and I reject the idea that, this is pretty good what we have now. We can do a lot better. The other thing is, if we can get a message that our tap water is turning brown because they're flushing the hydrants, why can't we use that system that's already available to say, hey, there's an important meeting coming up and we hope people will attend. I have another comment. I believe that the state believes that Berkshire Community College is our emergency evacuation location. Is that correct still, Glenn?
No. Oh,
Not correct?
yes and no. The latest word is it did not receive some of the inspection things that it needed to qualify for a state shelter, and they are working on it. So as of right now, they are going to use it, however, it's not fully sanctioned. It's my understanding it's not fully sanctioned yet.
So, that's not a terribly accessible location for us if there's a nor'easter where we all lose power and the vulnerable really need to go somewhere. So I really hope a place like this space, the senior center, would be able to house some people.
If I may, I think you'll see that developing this plan, I think it's Glenn who mentioned, it's really a foundation, and it's going to bring up a lot of other activities and projects that you're going to want to do. So it's a great starting place, but it sounds to me like, it may be worthwhile in the future having some meetings about evacuation and sort of home preparedness and what people can do. It's also really good if you can to make sure that you're educating the community what residents can expect from the town.
And just to add to that,
Often it's not clear
just
to everybody what they can expect their town to do.
Yeah, just to add to that, Jamie, and Glenn, keep me honest here, because there's two real plans here. One is we have our emergency management plan, which we reviewed, I think it was a month or two ago.
Right, that had evacuation routes, and a lot of the other early findings and discoveries that you had through that process, including a backup generator in this building and some other components. And the second is a mitigation plan. So if we ever had a disaster, our EM plan goes into effect, right? And then how the two then come together with the infrastructure, the resources we need to really make it.
Well, I think that's what, so in having the plan identify what we need to work on to mitigate it, and then we work on that, but then we also at the same time have to plan. Disasters still aren't going to go away. We're still going to have emergency response.
Right.
So, we can talk about the dam breaking, Cleveland Dam breaks. We can do mitigation. We can, you know, divert streams or ahead of time or do certain things to try and mitigate the damage, but we're still gonna have to respond to it when the time comes and have a plan in place to do that. So I think it's all a multifaceted thing. I think like we were saying before, this is something that, you know, I like this and that, you know, we're starting, as we go through this and Jamie and I and others, we've been going back and forth with all the different plans. And I mean, if you look at the 2019 MVP plan, there's over 125 items in that, suggestions, you know, that have been brought up, that things that could be done to help the vulnerability of the town based on climate change or flooding or other natural disaster, whichever. I mean, probably 10 have been done, and that was in 2019. You know, it's a matter of funding, it's a matter of job delegation, it's a matter of prioritization. So there's a lot to it. And I think, you know, but updating it now, especially like she said with the climate change and the different aspects in town, and having the committee sit down and go through this is a great start, and then we can build off of that. So.
And our next public meeting is targeted to be when, Julie? Or Jamie? Sorry.
March.
Probably in March.
March?
We're gonna have it in March. Let me get back to that slide and I can show you. Hold on.
Maybe it's part of just a thought, and board members chime in here. Because it's such an important topic, maybe we do have it on like a Saturday morning for like a coffee, tea kind of thing, engage more folks on that. Because it'll probably be much more structure around it as well, with details fleshed out by them too. Maybe.
I feel like, I mean, Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, that, so the next meeting, so our committee, the committee that you saw before is meeting monthly. And we have, I think, a meeting Wednesday, right? Jamie's, I think it's Wednesday. So we're going through all this information and kind of filtering through and trying to give them the information to then build it. And then the one in March, I think will be more structured in that we're gonna kind of a draft plan so people can really come through and see and gauge whether they, you know, it'll give them something more concrete. We're throwing ideas against the board in this meeting, or against the wall and seeing if they stick. That'll be more on paper and people can actually have something tangible to look at and say, well, that doesn't make sense to me, or that, I like that, and help us expand upon it. So I think it'll be very fruitful. And I like Cheryl's, I think she's absolutely right, that we can, hopefully maybe by then with the website and everything else, and listserv and other things, we can do better at getting the word out.
Yeah. I think too that you'll find that implementing the plan, implementing the mitigation actions, the education and outreach actions, that's what's going to really serve you well. I don't, you know, I think that the committee is going to be involved really in the weeds of putting the plan together. But I think you're going to want to increase the amount of public participation in some of those specific actions. But we'll see, you know, we'll see what happens as we move through this process. Are there other questions that anybody had?
Sure.
Yes. First, I'll make a plug for the Conservation Commission that every staff person in our town should, you know, really appreciate the importance of reporting and understanding the Concom and knowing, you know, when activities are happening in the town, because of course we are one of the interests of what we are protecting the town against flooding, our actions. So I'm trying to look a little confused. Do you know that that's what the Wetlands Protection Act is about?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so
Actually.
just the way you were looking at me.
Oh, no, I was looking at,
I'm thinking, do you think I'm
I was
not-
daydreaming.
So, I'm sorry.
I gotta admit it, I was thinking about what I wanted to say in a few minutes.
Sorry. Okay, so with that in mind, I noticed in the floodplain survey, look, my phone just closed, the Hazard Mitigation Planning National Insurance, Flood Insurance Program survey, they mentioned a floodplain manager for the town, and I was wondering who is doing that job. On the FEMA website, they talk about the appeals Board of Appeals. I thought, well, that's interesting, but as far as I know, the chair of the Board of Appeals, or whoever that is, or however that works in this town, is not a floodplain manager, or I don't know. So I just wondered if we have a floodplain manager, or who that is. Because literally, they ask, who is it in your town?
Yeah, offhand, I can't say, but I will check with the other permitting bodies, recognizing the Concom as a permitting body, and make sure that we we were able to
Because
fill
we
out
should be
that.
talking, I'd like to know who they are, since that's one of the main goals of Conservation Commission permitting, is mitigating future flooding, you know, through our activities, so, you know, through our guidance, I would say, for projects.
As of the last meeting that we had, it wasn't clear that there's anybody who's been designated with that position, but obviously it's something that the town should consider. And that's fairly typical, but we're pushing with our planning process that you do designate somebody.
And just for awareness for the group that's here and for the folks at home, Glenn, I also shared this with Principal Rob, just in case any students were interested in observing and learning through the public hearing. So we might get some next time, but for kids that are interested in understanding what this is all about. So, any questions from the board?
No.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah.
Mr. Boyle?
Yeah, I'd just like to say something. It's not a question. What's transpired here today is really nice. It's all well and good, all well meant. Great to have participation by the audience. Jamie here, everyone. But some of the things that have been mentioned, snow and lowland flooding, et cetera, hey, we're New England's, we're used to dealing with that. But what we're not used to dealing with is a train derailment. And I think that everybody's got their head in the sand about this issue. I know the Roses don't, because they took notice of what happened in the Midwest a year ago. In fact, they even contacted me about it, in my concern, because Glenn and I are really fortunate. We live right next to the tracks. And it's a serious issue. And what happened in the Midwest could very easily happen here, because the same type of chemicals and fuel oil and oil bound for the Port of Albany come right through here every single day. Multiple trains, and I can attest to that, multiple. So it really is an issue we should, I think that's where our concern should really be, is developing a plan. I know it's not a natural hazard, it's an unnatural hazard, I guess, for lack of a better term, but we really should be thinking about this. And evacuation, I know Glenn and I have talked informally about evacuation routes, and we're very concerned about the Gulf Road being closed for 3 years now, 2.5, will be 3 this winter. But I definitely think that our thinking needs to concentrate on this issue and what would happen if a train derailed in this town.
That's a great point, Mr. Boyle, and just out of a question for, I guess, Glenn, was that part of the tabletop exercise that happened, part of emergency management? Was it train derailment?
So it's something that, again, you know, I wish I could say I had all the time in the world to put into the 9 different things. Rob Rohauer is the CSX safety director for the entire Northeast, and him and I probably talk once a month. He covers, his job literally covers all of New England and New York. You know, and that's kind of the wall that you're up against when it comes to CSX and it comes to train stuff. They understand, they know the issues. I know they just had a big derailment in, we were on the phone. He was supposed to actually come here for a meeting, and he had to postpone because they had a 17-car train derailment in Amsterdam. So luckily there was all the cars were empty and there was no issue. It just took them back up and sent them on their way type of thing, I guess. But, you know, so it is something that we're dealing with them right now with South Street Bridge. And we've had a couple meetings with them. We have to schedule another one over the South Street Bridge, and our concerns that it keeps getting hit, and what's the safety level of the South Street Bridge, and is it just going to fall in one of these days because one of these trucks are going to hit it, or, you know, you get trains going. So we're trying to address that issue with them.
If I could add something, we did have a hazard mitigation plan committee meeting with Hinsdale today, and this issue to some extent came up, and as a consulting team we followed up with the state, so it is something that is being considered and being looked at. So at least you're not the only person aware of it, which is good. It's a start.
The last meeting we had a representative, we had somebody from Representative Neal's office, Mindy Pignatelli, we had representatives of CSX, we had, I don't know who else, Tom, you know, it's a group of people that sit down, you know, the primary focus of that was the South Street Bridge, but of course, safety comes into on top of all that. So, that's something, I know those are things that are, you know, we're working on. So, but it is a point, John, I completely understand, especially where you and I live.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we're talking about being on the front line.
In our backyard.
Yeah,
So,
in our backyard. And just maybe the evacuation plan.
Right.
I mean, because it's an emergency, we get the word out, hey, you get
Well, that's
evacuate to Hinsdale or
the
Windsor.
evacuation plan that was passed, you know, a lot of that centers, it's hard because when you start reading the orange book and you start going into some of the chemicals that come through town, you're talking half a mile. There's going to be an exclusionary zone of probably half a mile. And that stretches basically all the way to this doorstep. Anything else between here and the tracks is going to be, you know, in an exclusionary zone. So that takes out a lot of the routes except High Street. You know, and we go all the way down through town. So that's why we tried to get the system with that evacuation plan of everything flows. The town, you go out, go to Windsor, go to the hills, get out that way because we need to leave the hospital route open for emergency vehicles. So, you know, we can't have the South Street intersection tying everybody up, trying to flood their stuff to Pittsfield. Go out of town this way, so emergency vehicles would come in this way or go out that way. So those are the type of things I think we're slowly addressing. It's just, like I said, it's, you know, we're...
Not easy, but hey.
The stack on the desk is high.
Just getting people talking about it is a real plus, because we're all residents and we've all been here a while. Right. And we tend to take this railroad thing for granted or have our heads in the sand about it. We don't want to recognize that it is a really issue. But it came to the forefront, as I said last year, with the major, was it Pennsylvania?
East Palestine.
Right.
East Palestine, Ohio.
Ohio, yeah, Ohio.
And Kentucky.
Yeah. The one right after that, yeah. Hey, that could, I hate to say this, could happen here.
Absolutely. I have two questions.
Ms. Rose?
Hi, so a couple things. One is I'm just, you know, hoping that we can benefit from things that you are finding that other towns may be, you know, doing, creative solutions. That's just one thing. When it, you know, just in general, to like communication, et cetera, just, you know, you work with other towns and I certainly hope you'll bring to us some ideas that other towns may have that we may not come up with. The other thing is, when, John, you're talking about the train, something Henry tried to look into, which is it like the wattles or something? Like what is our fire department set up? Do you know what I mean by wattles? Wattles are like sausages of straw, like that stop a spill from sprawling, that stop water from flowing. Okay, it's what's used to contain a horrible spill. And like, is our fire department set up that they know like where to get, like where they're going to get, like what's the plan? And Henry tried to look into it. What did you?
I tried calling the fire chief about that and he didn't get back to me and then he left.
So to try to find out what's our fire department, like how are they prepared? Because those are probably, that's who's going to respond to a toxic spill. So are they, like, you know,
But
do they have the materials or do they have the access to the materials on short notice? Obviously, they're not going to stock a warehouse full of stuff like this.
Although I don't think any of us know the answer to it, I would probably refer back to the, I would then go look at the emergency management plan and go, okay, what do we do in toxic spills if that's identified, or what's in the plan of that, because there should be the roles of folks to respond to that based upon that overall emergency management plan, which is what, about this thick. It's pretty detailed, so, but I don't know the answer to that specific question.
Just a preparedness
But that would be,
question.
Mr. Bishop?
You know what I mean? Just we have processes like those, just like evacuation routes, et cetera, knowing that our fire department is prepared.
Doesn't Maximilian have a hazmat team that goes
I
out?
don't really know. Do we have a relationship with them? I have no idea. Sounds like a thought. That's what I'm saying. But you have to like build a relationship and have a plan when it happens. And what are you going to do? In that moment, you better like know what to do.
Yeah, I think for any of us too, that because there's been a lot of great work in the emergency management plan, when we think about emergency management, we probably want to refer to that and see what's in there and then begin to then evolve from questions from that. I don't know what's in there or not. I don't know front and back. But actually, it's making me think just to go look at it, to become more familiar with it tonight, you know, for the topic. So, It's leisurely reading, right?
Do we only have,
Yeah.
do we only have one doctor's office in our town?
So, you guys, I'm just gonna, just leave you with one final thought, and that is, yes, we will bring our creative solutions and expertise, to you. We do work nationwide and have been doing this work for, I don't know, 25 years or so, so I think we have some good ideas and things that we can offer you. And I think your question about the fire department leads to thinking about, first of all, they do have some training. That's part of becoming a firefighter, but also I think it leads to education and outreach so that citizens have an understanding of what the community can provide, and that's something that we can include in the plan. If you have any final questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, you've got my contact information. I'll share this presentation back with Glenn. You can post it.
We know where to find you, Jamie, that's for sure. So thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Jamie.
Thank you again to
Thank
Glenn,
you.
yourself, your team, everybody that's participated.
Yeah.
Again, excellent presentation tonight, so thank you for that time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. All right, take care, guys.
Okay.
Thank you, Jamie.
We're going to go ahead and close this mitigation plan update. And again, thank you for everyone's participation. And then go to number 8, the FY24 tax classification hearing. Ms. Hutchinson, you have administrative change on that?
Just an update. We're having to postpone that because the principal assessor had some issues with the way it was posted. I went back and forth with her and town council and was unable to persuade her that what we were posting was, in fact, sufficient. So what I'd like to do is try to get people to meet Thursday, probably at 6 p.m. for a quick meeting, single item on the agenda, the tax classification hearing here, yes. And again, this is just to decide whether we're going to charge the residential properties the same as the commercial properties.
Well, would you be able to do it? You said Thursday, right?
Yes.
Thursday, okay.
I can be here Thursday.
Yeah, I'll be here.
You're not available, right, Joe?
I'm not available.
Bob,
I'm available.
you are available?
Yeah.
Okay, good, so we have a quorum.
We have at least a quorum. We'll get in touch with Mark and
All right.
and see if he can be here.
Yeah.
And I'll include all the language that she requires. If you feel comfortable posting it to the state website. I had thought we had it.
I don't understand what the big
ironed out
issue is.
last year. But,
I don't understand what our issue is, because we've been doing the same thing since the inception of this procedure. And that's about 35 years.
yes, about 4 years ago or so, I'm not sure exactly when, the rules for posting changed.
I mean, posting a meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Prior, in years past, there has had to be a newspaper notice, and now there no longer has to be a newspaper notice, but she's concerned that the posting include the same language that used to be required for the newspaper notice.
Was town council's opinion the same, or was they kind of?
No, he said we were okay to go, and she didn't feel comfortable with that. She didn't think it was sufficient. And it's true, it's a little thin, but I tried to make the argument that it was at least sufficient, and she said, no, you really need to include, for one thing, an invitation for people to attend, and other.
All right.
Other
That's
items.
fine.
Hey,
We'll do it Thursday.
Okay.
Okay.
Number 10, acceptance of grants. Mr. Hutchinson.
Yeah, we've got a couple of great ones. Congratulations to the police department for pulling in over $41,000 for replacement portable radios. That's the first one.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the public safety grant for $41,247.27 for the replacement of portable radios.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
And second, the DPW applied for and got a Maya risk management grant for confined space equipment. It's a set of tools for them to use, especially in their sewer work and whenever they're down below in any confined space.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the MIIA Public Works Grant in the amount of $3,247.65 for confined space equipment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion? Hear none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Number 11, Town Manager, interim report on climate change preparedness policy.
Yes, I believe you requested that I report at this time on that policy. We do not have currently a revised version. There was an initial version that was presented some months ago, and since then, I think it's important to make it clear in that policy that we're working towards what the state is calling climate leader status. Now that does include an additional stretch code, which may or may not be a problem at town meeting, but we can at least get done, everything up to that, and then see if people want to vote for that in order to get substantial new funds that now can be used for generating renewable energy, that is perhaps putting solar panels on town buildings, that kind of thing. So I thought that the policy ought to explicitly reflect that. All of the elements were in there without actually saying it. I think due to some concern that it might not be well received, but I believe in being fully transparent, so I said, let's just tell them what we're trying for here. Also, the state has now changed their requirement for climate leader status from having a climate action plan to having a decarbonization plan in particular. And town council, on a related note, town council thought that it would be best to have the money that was allocated for that plan at the last town meeting reallocated with the current purpose so that there was no confusion in anyone's mind, no thought that something had been approved that then we did something else with those funds. So that's unfortunately a little delay in that. I know the Green Committee was hopeful at one point to try to get climate leader status sooner rather than later, that is, do things at this current town meeting. But seeing as how a change in the zoning or a change in the building code would require substantial public education and
Well, that's going to come before the board before it goes to town meeting, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So all of those things I think need to be taken into account. So they're working on redrafting the policy. That's the quick version.
Okay, and the 60K that we put for the climate change, climate action plan is on hold?
Yeah, it was for climate change planning.
Mm-hmm.
And
Tom, I hate to interrupt, but things have changed.
Since the last meeting?
So again, I think the point is that we don't have a policy to present to you tonight.
Yeah.
Correct.
But we
That's
will,
the key.
we will be,
How long we need to know now?
we are working through
The interim report is
everything
you're working on it, right?
that needs to make that happen.
Sorry, thanks.
Good.
That's the quick thing.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, so are we waiting until just the next regular town meeting to reallocate those funds to specifically a decarbonization plan?
That is the advice of town council.
Because the town didn't vote on that, they did vote on the other language, so.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
It's kinda-
You don't want to make it even look as though there's any change in objective
Absolutely.
going on there.
Yeah.
So that's that. But I do hope that we can get a policy
Todd,
before
you got
that.
something new on that?
So this is a piece that I wanted to talk to Tom about before tonight's meeting, but I didn't see that it was on there.
Oh.
Just in the course of what's happening, but the recommendation of the Green Committee will be to spend that 60K on a cap RFP as originally planned, because the Green Committee is recommending we don't pursue climate leader status.
Oh.
Big change.
Interesting, that is a big
Big
change.
change, that's why.
Okay.
That's why.
That's another
Yeah.
But But I still think it would be worthwhile updating the
Why don't
climate
we-
change preparedness policy.
We'll just put this on a future agenda.
Future
Maybe
agenda.
January. Yeah, do it January?
New Year, yeah.
Yeah, after the first year.
When we're ready.
Okay, yeah,
We're
okay.
ready, but before town meeting.
Well,
All right.
there may be an update from the Green Committee soon, at a upcoming select board meeting to kind of reframe all of this so that you
Yeah.
guys have a sense of what we've
Okay.
been chewing on.
We can target January if you guys are ready. If not, then we'll do
Okay.
February.
Yeah, that'd be
just
great.
let us know.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's an important topic.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, thank you both. Number 12, sign letter of commendation for DPW superintendent for securing $1 million Orchard Road grant. And Mr. Esco, would you like to read this into the?
Sure.
Okay.
From the town of Dalton, dated today, November 27th, 2023, addressed to Superintendent Edward Hall. Dear Superintendent Hall, the Select Board commends you for your persistence and excellent work in securing a $1 million grant for the town to repave Orchard Road, together with drainage improvements that should keep the road in good condition for years to come. Your work stands as an example to all employees of the benefits that can accrue from dedication to the best interests of the town. Your positive attitude is an inspiration, and your ability to keep doing more for the town as the years go by is impressive. Thank you not only for this particular accomplishment, but for all the work you do, day in and day out, to keep Dalton in good shape and safe for our residents. Sincerely, members of the Dalton Select Board.
Thank you. So let's take that as a motion as presented. Is there a second? Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
We're gonna sign that one, I guess.
Motion carries. Oh, there's a fancy printer. Yeah, this is a copy. Thank you, Dan. Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta sign
Okay,
that.
we'll sign this one.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Thank you, and thank you again to Bud Hall
Yes.
for that great work. Acceptance of third quarter franchise fee for Dalton Community Cable Association. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the third quarter franchise fee for Dalton Community Cable Association in the amount of $29,509.27 received from Charter Communication.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Town manager update. Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes, thank you. We received on Wednesday a letter from the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, MDAR, stating that they are exercising their right of first refusal for the Barden property and have elected to purchase the premises for $150,000. There is a period in which the state will seek requests for statements of interest for an assignment of the right to purchase. That is, a different qualified buyer. MDAR does not have the right to own land, however. So if the state cannot find anyone to close on the property, the town will again have the right to sell it without MDAR requiring a review of the farmer. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Fair enough.
We don't need to talk
Should
about it
be
anymore.
chapter 32, page, yeah.
Thank you for the update on that.
See, he's saying that if they had in law the right to first refusal, they'd have the right to own property, but not in Massachusetts.
One
State
would
government.
think.
Yeah.
The legislative way would have been easier.
I understand Representative Blay and Senator Comerford have had a bill proposed to allow MDAR to own property. I have written to ask how that's going. I have not yet received a response.
Okay.
Thank you, Tony.
We've been trying for some time to have the bus shelter currently on Daly Avenue relocated to Main Street, where the new stop is. Unfortunately, we've not been able to contact the owner of the Shamrock Motel, nor is the owner of the former gas station willing to talk, as the property is currently for sale. He doesn't want to put a bus station on. The option of the town buying the parcel is off the table for the moment, as the site could require the removal of underground storage tanks. We may seek a brownfields grant in the future to remove that. We can do that in partnership with a private entity. But at the moment, it stands as a barrier to being able to do anything with a lot, for the town to do anything with a lot. I've been working with Alyssa to convene the Cable Advisory Committee, and the first meeting is now scheduled for Monday. One item on their agenda will be establishing relations with the Charter Communications representative for Dalton, and another will be choosing an attorney to work with. There are two available, one from KB Law and one independent lawyer referred to DCTV Executive Director Michael Sinopoli, who I actually worked with before in Congress, so that will be an item to discuss. Regarding the request that I set up a meeting with the Pittsfield mayor, the mayor-elect. Mayor-elect Marchetti is due to be sworn in January 2nd. Since there's only one mayor at a time, I will make arrangements to meet with him once he's in office to speak about Gulf Road. At a recent meeting with other municipal managers, in a discussion about civility and the recent free speech ruling regarding comments at public meetings, it was suggested that select boards might want to put a limit on the amount of time any one person can speak under the public comment section, perhaps 3 minutes. It was also emphasized that no discussion should take place around topics brought up unless and until the item is put on the agenda. I met with an engineer regarding a cost for preliminary design options for lifts at Town Hall. The current lift is unreliable enough to be practically non-functional, though it did pass the recent state inspection. Once we have the preliminary options with cost estimates, we can apply for a grant, though the Massachusetts Office on Disability grants cover just 60% of the cost with a 40% town match. I'm pleased to say that the quote for services to prepare for the installation of insulation at the town garage was low enough that Bud can use his own budget. We have two sources of funding for the work, a Green Communities grant and a utility rebate. Kudos to Tom Irwin for setting up the project. And that is my report.
About this bus shelter thing. As your representative to the BRTA, I've been working with Raleigh Kane, guy in charge of the bus shelter thing, and pointing out to him that the owners of the Shamrock are in Florida for the winter, and they do it for the whole winter. He's been calling the wrong number, he's been calling the motel. So, we're getting on track with that, we're working towards a solution. Now, I pointed out to him, there used to be a bus shelter, sure, Bob and Dale remember, in front of the Methodist Church. So, it might be a solution if they want it on Main Street. So, there's avenues, and we're talking and we're working on solutions. And I think they're gonna remove the old bus station for two reasons. One is 2 years since they changed the route, and second, people coming out of the post office and using that entryway there, it blocks the sight line as you look up Daly Avenue. So it's a hazard. So they're gonna take it to the shop and refurbish it, and we're looking for another location.
Great, thank you, Mr. Boyd. Thank you. And any questions for our town manager? Future agenda items. I'd like to suggest, just from Tom's update, that the open meeting and free speech section, if we want to add it to a future agenda to talk about our structure, and maybe we can get some advice from KP Law. I think we did that a couple months ago when this first started, Tom. So it might just be new learnings that we might want to structure. I think we do a pretty good job.
We can edit this after too.
Yeah. Because a lot of towns are limited in that per speaker.
Yeah.
Right, but sometimes we engage them in the topic, like tonight, we wouldn't be able to limit it, because like on the flood, on mitigation plans, and we'll go back and forth dialogue, but they want to speak about any specific
Well,
topic.
and that wasn't necessarily during the public comment period before the meeting started.
Got it.
So this
okay.
is just for that 30 minutes?
Just for that 30-minute section?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Yeah, which makes sense.
but we actually never really had any problems with that.
Yeah.
People abusing the thing, but it's good to review it.
Problems, yeah, true.
There's been some doozies out there.
But it's gonna have a lot of
Other
problems.
towns, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Any other future agenda? And no rush on that. We could do that January, February. Any items not anticipated, any other future agenda items? Board members? Any items not anticipated 48 hours before the meeting?
When's the meeting in December? Did we
December
decide that before? I forgot.
11th, yeah, that month.
11th?
Yeah.
With 6 o'clock with the finance committee and then 7 o'clock for the regular select board meeting.
On the 11th of
December.
Any items not anticipated 48 hours before the meeting?
Not from me.
Oh, just real quick, back to future agenda, just, I'll have an update on our comments on the CBRSD regional agreement by our next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Any remarks to the select board? No, Mr. Bishop.
Yeah, don't forget, light up the town on December 9th. So,
Yes.
that's it. Where
The
Santa
next
Claus
day,
comes
the
down.
next day is the luncheon.
Yes,
Luncheon.
yes, and
And December 10th is the volunteer.
volunteer
Yeah,
luncheon.
that's right. Gotta reply RSVP to that though, right?
It's television, it's right there.
Alyssa. Alyssa.
Huh?
Alyssa.
Listen, what did I say?
Alicia.
Oh,
Any other remarks to the select board?
well done.
Yeah, it's all right. Hearing none. This moves us to the announcements. Annual car permits, bag stickers, recycling only car permits are available for purchase at the transfer station and on the town's website. There are numerous committees and boards with vacancies. Please see the town website for more information or reach out to the town manager's office. Is your electricity bill too high? The town has contracted with Colonial Power to provide an electricity plan for town residents that takes advantage of joining with other communities to have a larger customer base for negotiations, which has resulted in prices significantly lower than current Eversource prices. Please note, this may not always be the case. For more detail on opt-in or opt-out, visit the town's website or call the town manager's office.
Mr. Chair, I just found out today, Colonial will be sending out, our aggregator will be sending out postcards soon with the new prices. Our price will compare favorably with Eversource for the 6 months starting in January.
Great, thank you for that update. Dalton Housing Authority is seeking a volunteer to fill a vacant seat on this board. Must be a resident of Dalton. Please call 413-684-1470 for more information. The Central Berkshire Regional School District is seeking a representative from the town of Dalton to fill a vacancy on the school committee. Please reach out to the superintendent's office at 413-684-0320 for more information. And the Dalton Police Department would like to remind residents of the winter parking ban, which is in effect from November 15, 2023 through April 15, 2024. There will be no parking allowed on streets between these dates and between the hours of 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. And the next regular meeting is scheduled to take place on Monday, December 11, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Senior Center with an option for remote participation.
And the tax classification hearing this Thursday, November 30th.
And tax classification this Thursday, November 30th
At 6 p.m.
at 6 p.m. at the Senior Center, right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll both have option for remote participation? Remote participation for Thursday?
Sure.
Okay, all right. And, okay, if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion and second, discussion, hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? We are adjourned. Good night, Dalton. Thank you.